Dennis?
Good evening, Sean, and good evening, everybody. Good timing there, Sean. Welcome, everyone, to the Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 4, coming to you live from the Silverstone circuit in the United Kingdom. I'm your commentator, Dennis Mitchell, and I'm joined once again by Sean Woodgate.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here at Silverstone for this interesting Porsche race that we're going to see tonight.
And, of course, this is Round 4 from Silverstone. Round 5 will be from the Nürburgring. Round 6 from Spa Grand Prix Circuit. Round 7 from the Suzuka Grand Prix Circuit. Round 8, the Zandvoort Circuit. Then round 9, the Montreal Grand Prix Circuit, and round 10, the Monza Grand Prix Circuit. So all Grand Prix tracks. And our point system, for those that are not aware, for P1 you get 25 points, down to P10 where you get 1 point. It's points for race 1 and points for race 2. You get 2 points for pole position, and then there's 2 points for both race fastest laps. Our standings coming into this round, we have Gerrit Bierkes for Team Full Throttle on 112 points. Jean de Toy has moved up to second place on 69 points. Jandre Dippenaar is down to third place, but he's also on 69 points. So I think just by the nature of the positions that they've gained, that Jandre is now being put in second. Fourth place overall, we have Sean Olivier, Peter Murray in fifth, Stanton Augustus in sixth, Peter Gelderneys in seventh, Julian Brains in 8th place. In 9th place, Monet Deploy. Timo Smit in 10th place. Marius van Wyk in 11th place. He is our leading veteran driver. Chris Collison in 12th place. Andre Hildebrandt 13th. Dinesh Singh in 14th. Stan Bezuidenhout in 15th. Wessel Viljoen in 16th. Sean Johnson 17th. And in 18th place, Ravi Ghosh. And a reminder that we do also have a pro and veteran class. So the drivers that are veterans will have yellow next to the name. The drivers that are pro will have red next to their name. They do all compete for the same championship, but the veterans also compete for their own championship. So the veterans will have a little side championship. I think there's 4 veterans at the moment in the championship. That is Andre Hildebrandt, it's Ravi Ghosh, it is Marius van Wyk and Hilke Vereniger. I believe the drivers are now ready and in qualifying. So we're going to jump to qualifying. Right, qualifying is officially live. The drivers are now on track. So this is the official qualifying session. It is a 30-minute session. Drivers can put as many laps in as they like, but they have a 30-minute limit. Right, hopefully now we can gather ourselves and get everything sorted here. It's quite a long qualifying session.
Time to get used to the track again. And Woodcote is one of those, Woodcote is a corner. Silverstone is one of those tracks that I was going to say is not difficult to memorize, but I think it keeps the drivers very busy for almost all of the circuit. There are 2-3 sections that are a little bit straight between Woodcote and Copse. There's a little bit of a straight where you can flex the fingers. Then after Chapel Curve, down the hanger straight to Stowe. And then the straight that's, I think, got the start-finish line. The Hamilton straight, that's very short. So there's also the Wellington straight, which, if you have a bit of an imagination, then you can think of Silverstone as almost bean-shaped, except the inside curve of the bean is squashed up against the top. So Aintree, the loop and Aintree are really close to Maggots and Beckett's. So the inside section of the circuit is close to the outside of the section of the circuit. There is a part that they don't use in there where there's a road across from Abbey to Brooklands, but I think that's used in different classes, but not in the Porsche Cup, Super Cup.
So the weather forecast for tonight, race 1 is clear, qualifying is clear. Race 2, it seems like there's a bit of weather on the way, so we're expecting a wet start with a drying track, so that should make for a slight bit of action in race 2. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that.
Andre Dippenaar not doing his tyres any favour by sliding out of that corner, but maybe just trying to get some temperature and then a lock-up as well. So a few mistakes early in, and you want to preserve your tyres. This is only qualifying, so you can, of course, go in for another set of tyres. So that pit exit is at Vale, if I've got it right. They should have... Actually, they go straight through, so that might be the hanger straight, because depending what championship you race, they have more than one start line in use at Silverstone. So we'll find our way around as they go around. but certainly a very, very busy circuit with many corners.
This is probably the most famous part through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel.
Right, so it's left, right, and the one that goes continuously right then is Beckett's, and then there's Chapel. This is, I think, the hanger straight before you'll get to Stowe. Now, Stowe is a little bit more than a 90-degree right-hander as they get to it now. Nice to follow in car with Yandere Dip. Now, this is Stowe corner, and just before, or as well, Vale has mentioned as a corner, but there's the pit lane exit. So the next corner will be a very sharp right-left, which makes up the club complex, and then another right-hander before they go into the Hamilton straight with the start line. So some of the cars, as you see there, will be actually, if there's enough in the field, they'll be parked around the corner, and I wonder whether they'll have a marshal with a flag rather than be able to concentrate on the start lights. So we've left them there. If they get to a sharp right-hander, that's Village, and then it'll be almost 180-degree left. That's the loop before going more left into Aintree. Okay, this is back with a different driver. This is Chris Collison, one of the UK drivers, or he's a South African that's based in the UK, and he's been quick in some of the other classes, at times battling to find his feet with a Porsche Supercup, but a very competent, very fast driver. Julian Brains in the green machine, racing for High Revolution Racing. Julian runs on average middle of the pack, but he has had some exceptional races where he has surprised us as well. Everybody seems to have twitchy cars at the moment.
Julian got a setup in the dying moments of practice from Gerrit, well, actually from Gerrit and from Rian. He seems to have taken well to Gerrit's setup, so he's jumped up. He was running sort of at the back of the pack tonight, struggling, and now he seems to be sort of 6th, 7th place, judging by his practice time. So let's see as he comes across the line, where does he go up to? 6th place at the moment.
Well, that's very good. That's in the top, almost 1/3. Looks as though we have 17 competitors out for qualifying. We have had over 20 in the Porsche Supercup, but wonder whether some are feeling a bit out of the weather after the result that we're not talking about in the rugby yesterday.
As we watch Gerrit getting ready to do a lap, of course, Gerrit is our current championship leader. I think he's going to have a hard time tonight. There's a little bit more stiff competition around Silverstone tonight. I think some of the other circuits have definitely suited him, and the guys are starting to get up to speed. We have a few extra guys there tonight as well, namely Chris Collison. We might possibly even have Jason Underwood join later on, so fingers crossed that we would have a full Team Harder Racing joining. I believe Jason's cricket season has finished.
But the two of them certainly in some of the classes that have run previously have shown the road. They were running the Aston Martin. What championship was that in, Dennis?
The GT3 championship.
Yes, and there was very little to catch them, and certainly great races and very competitive at all times they are. Chris Collison is the quickest by a quarter of a second, so certainly showing his mettle here early on in qualifying. He is, of course, still quite a way to go. This is a long qualifying session of half an hour, and lap times here are just over 2 minutes, so you can expect the guys that they might come in for tyres at one stage, but I should imagine that they'll get somewhere between 13, 14 laps under the belt, even with a change of tyres. Some of the guys might actually get a good qualifying time in and elect to stay in the pits and not stay out on track all the time.
Now, just before the qualifying went off, as I was about to hit the stream button, the power was tripped in my area, so thankfully for all the backup batteries that we have, everything was kept going. But that might also be why we're having an odd little glitch here and there. Maybe the area is just a bit funny, or maybe it's Eskom doing their thing.
I did say there's going to be no load shedding this long weekend.
Yes, I'm not scheduled for any today, and yet it went off probably for about 5 minutes. So I'm not sure what it was. I hope you guys can't hear the fans blowing in the background as the inverter is just charging up the battery that was running for 5 minutes.
So, in car with Gerrit Beerkes, let's see where he is. He's in 4th position with a 204.633. This is not the, this is the section 1. He puts in a purple for sector 1. So potentially a very good lap for him. If purple, of course, as we see it on the lap scoring monitor, means best of all competitors in that sector. And we'll follow him around to see how he does in sector 2 and sector 3, and whether he then ultimately, when you combine sectors and complete the lap, whether he can get a better time. There's a personal best for sector 2. So something could be brewing here. Maybe how far is he behind Sean Olivier? 0.9 of a second. So if he can make up 0.9 of a second, he's certainly holding a nice line there. Drifts it out onto the curbing and uses all of the track very well to maintain the speed that he needs.
I believe that 0.9 is to the leader. I think it's 0.3 to Sean. So this, I think,
You're
he's
quite
definitely
right.
going to jump him up a bit. Possibly to pole, maybe second.
Yeah, certainly has a good lap running. In race, we actually see the
Provisional
interval.
pole.
Yeah, so Gerrit jumps up with the fastest lap of a 203.6. Let's call it for 2/1000ths of a second. We'll call it a 203.6. And the next best is Chris Collison, who's 0.15 of a second slower. So one could expect that Chris is going to also try and mount a charge. But 2 races, they get points for pole position, and I think they get points in each race for the fastest lap. Although it's only 1 point, if you're running a close championship, it can make a difference, and we have seen that happen in previous championships, that those bonus points for pole position and fastest lap in a race, that it actually can be useful.
I believe it's 2 points. I'm going to just quickly drop the overlays just to double check, but I think it is 2 points. Let's get it here. If I can get to this, which I'm struggling to find now. So for the life of me, I am not seeing the points system here.
Not a problem, but the system will record it automatically. That is car number 22, which is Chris Collison. So he's trying his best to make up that 0.15 of a second that Gerrit Beekers has trumped him. But first and second on the grid is certainly noteworthy. If you look at the other lap times, some of the slower drivers, Javi is there battling it out as usual. Unlucky for some, number 13, Javi has chosen to race, and I've seen him race that in various formulas that I've had the pleasure to commentate in sim racing, and Javi is stuck to the number 13. He runs a car that's predominantly white with a little bit of blue and a red stripe in it. So if we do see Harvey, you can recognize the car immediately. Chris Collison in the black and blue, also a car that's fairly easy to recognize, Team Harder Racing. And there he is coming up in the background.
And decides to pit as we're watching him.
Yeah, he decides to go off the circuit. Sean Olivier in 4th position at the moment, about 0.6, 0.7 a second behind pole. So everything to go for at the moment. He does a personal best in sector 3. So he finds himself, he's done 6 laps. Those that have done the most laps, all of them have done 6 laps. A few that have done less. But knowing these guys, let me just check how much time is left. It's 18 minutes yet to go, so plenty time to put on new rubber and then go out again once the car is all settled, and more importantly, the driver is all settled with the layout of the circuit again. As I said, it is one that does test you. We didn't get to stay in car with one driver for the whole of the circuit, but as we said, they have more than one start line. So that means they have more than one pit exit as well. The one we saw there is the one that comes off the track, I think at Chapel Curve. So this will more than likely be Stowe that they're going through now.
We'll go on board with Sean while we're following the track.
And this is then a left-right combination. I'm going to find myself on the
Nuggets,
circuit.
Beckett's.
Yeah, Maggots, Beckett's. And then Chapel Curve should be coming up. There's that exit onto the pits that they use at the Hanger Straight. So this is the Hanger Straight that they're going to. It will be Stowe next, which will be sharp right. It's quite a long corner as well. Interesting that he positions the car middle of the road. I would have thought he comes from the left and drifts across. You take the apex and then drift out to the left again. So this is Vale. It's a sweep until they get to Club. Club is a complex which is, as you see, two very sharp corners. It'll be low speed before they then go around and then start the Hamilton Straight, which I think they'll be using tonight. The start-finish line is very close to the start of the straight, so you've got to get well positioned. This will be Abbey, then Farm Curve is the one they're going through now. Village will be the next. It's a sharp, more than 90-degree right-hander. Then you have the loop, and when you get to the loop, we'll wait for it. There they get to the loop now. You'll see why it's called the loop. It just goes on and on and on and then some, and goes into Aintree, which is a continuation to the left. And eventually they go into the Wellington Straight. After the Wellington Straight, it will be Brooklands. So Brooklands is not too much of a problem. It's sort of high speed, not quite as sweet, but it's a high speed corner. And then a hairpin, which is Luffield. So into Luffield corner, you'll see that it's a sharp hairpin. They'll be turning in and apexing, and he actually hit the apex and missed it. I think the back end was stepping out on him, and he then decided to abandon the lap. So very difficult track. This is to get it right all the time, and there are so many corners. And luckily I spotted the one that he actually missed the apex, and in missing the apex he missed the corner, and then decided let's rather abort the lap and go back in and resettle again.
Right, watching Peter Geldenhuys now. Those fantastic Castrol colours.
Yeah, known to racing all over the world is the Castrol brand. Very active in South African racing as well. I think she's retired now, but in the days that I was still doing circuit commentary, they sponsored our shirts, and they had a badge on our shirts as well. Somebody's probably just joined the circuit there. There's one of the pit exits where they rejoin the track again.
We have a lock up there, running wide, missing the apex, and deciding to abandon the lap.
Looks as though we put the mockers on the drivers. When we cross to them, they make a mistake and then abort the lap. Even that car there was through in front of Esthuizen. He's not very comfortable with that lap or that corner. If you see, it sort of aligned the corner, then realigned the corner. So that makes the lap a little bit slow if you're taking two stabs at it. But nonetheless, going at it quite well.
So halfway through qualifying, just about 14 minutes left to go.
All right, and as we said, 2 minutes per lap here, plus some. So we can expect that we're going to get with 14 minutes to go, probably another 6 or 7 laps in.
Yeah, so currently we have Chris Collison provisional pole from Gerrit Beekers, Jandre Dippenaar, then Jean-Louis de Toy, Sean Olivier, Julian Brains doing great in 6th place. Then it's Pieter Murray in 7th, Peter Geldenhuys in 8th, Rian van der Weste is in 9th, Donovan van Mark in 10th, Dinesh Singh in 11th, Marius van Wyk 12th, Monet de Toy in 13th, Arjun Balder, still not too sure how to pronounce it. Christian Labas has just jumped up to 12th, Andre Hildebrandt is 16th, and Harvey Goos is currently in 17th.
If you haven't listened in many of the series before, I'll give Harvey a shout out, because I think he's the only racing driver in South Africa, real racing, in other words, not sim racing, that has won the same championship in 3 different decades. And they're not consecutive. So he won the Formula V championship, and I've got to get it right. Now I'm posing myself a question. I think in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And if Mariki is listening, Goeienaand Mariki, good evening to you. Nice to have Harvey on the track as well. So yes, a single-seater racer of note, Harvey Goos. And he's been out there. He was in the British touring cars that we raced. He battled with the Infinity, if I remember correctly. And he's out here racing in the Porsche Supercup tonight.
Yeah, his very well-known colours. We'll be seeing that in the Renault Cup as well. His car's already been prepared for him.
Oh, there he goes. So that's Harvey in the white and blue with a little red stripe.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have such a well-known South African legend joining us. The honour to have people like Harvey join the sim racing world.
Does the rest of the world know where we're going or what we'll be racing after the Porsche Supercup, even though it's early days in the Porsche Supercup?
I have announced it on our Discord, but for those that don't have the Discord, that just watch the YouTube channel, we will be doing a Renault 8 or Renault Gordini R8 championship following the Porsche Supercup series.
So going back to a bit of historic racing, where I have been in contact today, and I won't mention names, with somebody who was very, very well known. And let's say that she could pedal a Renault Gordini R8 very, very quickly. So that might let a few people's ears perk up, that yes, it's not a man, it was a lady, and she beat many of the guys.
Yeah, she was on top form. She really could drive.
And even with the sprinkling of rain, they'd run in the different classes. She would be up there and beating the V8s as well. So the Gordini, because of its size, a little bit of rain, and it could handle. It really handled very well.
So just over 10 minutes to go, so we're almost at the 2/3 mark. Just watching Dean Ash finish his lap, personal best in sector 2, as he runs slightly wide. I think he just kept it on track, but he probably lost a bit of speed.
Now, that's the thing of leaving the circuit and having the filling shaken out of your teeth, is that you actually lose a bit of speed, and I think he's decided to board the lap as well. Marius van Wyk in that purpley coloured car, also well known. And let's see where Marius is. He's in 13th position, so he's in the bottom 1/3 of the field, as it were. And his best time at this stage is a 2:08.2. We compare that to Chris Collison, who's retaken the lead, and we've missed that somewhere in between. Chris is almost 3/100ths of a second quicker than Gerrit Beker, so that's how close it is, 0.028. And Chris Collison's time at 2:03.359, Gerrit Beker's at 2:03.387. So right behind them as well, with a 2:03.619, is Jandre Dippenaar. And a little bit further back, half a second or so, is Jean-Ray de Toy. So some of the guys that ran in the Namibian series as well, they must be tired today, because they've just run one set of races just after lunch, and they're back for some more Porsche Supercup racing this evening.
Yeah, speaking of which, the Namibian Motorsport Federation's 2023 Esports Series champion is Adrian Nel. So congratulations to Adrian. Unfortunately not here yet tonight, so I'm not sure if he'll be joining. Maybe he's just had a bit too much on his plate and won't be joining us, but it would be nice to have him join. We can then say we have the current champion from Namibia joining us.
And to show you that consistency shines through, Jean-Ray was second in the championship. He's fourth in qualifying here. And Jandre Dippenaar was third in that championship. And he's lying third on the qualifying sheet as we see it in front of us now.
Now the driver has just joined. That's why we had a bit of a hiccup there. So we're now up to 18 drivers.
Which is nice, because then we can say the top third is rounded off by Julian Brains, and then Dinesh Singh sort of rounds off the middle, 1/3 of the pack, and Gawie Gous is at the back of the field. But yeah, Chris Collison somewhere snuck in that quickest race, and it looks like they've all stayed out on the same set of tyres that they've had, because Chris Collison 12 laps, Gerrit Beker's 13, Jandre Dippenaar 11, Jean-Ray de Toy 11 laps, Sean Olivier 12 laps. So some doing many more laps than the others, and we'll have to see if it's going to make a difference. Just check at the time quickly with 7-8 minutes to go. There is enough time to come in, change rubber, and go out again. But I think some guys just think, if we've put it there, we'll race the race with the rubber we've got. As Dennis was saying, what the weather might be doing. In this class of racing, you've either got dries or wets. You don't have hards, intermediates, and softs. So they'll go out with this weather. They all go out with the dry rubber. And then, we'll see what the weather does during the course of the evening. With them, of course, where they're racing, it's during the course of the day. So hope that the weather holds, but certainly a little bit of moisture does always make the racing quite exciting.
Personal best in Sector 1 for Peter Murray. That's a very good Sector 1, so let's see how this lap unfolds. 34.3 in Sector 1.
Just see where he is on the sheet as well. Peter is in 8th position with a 205.9. Let's see if he can improve on that. This will be now the time, if you've stayed out on circuit, of course, whatever fuel you went out with will be becoming lighter, and the rubber will be nicely warmed up. You might get a warning there from the race officials for exceeding track limits. You get a few warnings before you, in a race, certainly you do. I'm not sure if it does that in qualifying. I don't think they restrict as Formula One, where they knock the lap off if you exceeded track limits. I don't think they have somebody that's keeping an eye on, like the Brad Binder lookouts, to see where he might just put something off the track and then penalize him. I see they did it again this weekend with his speed under a yellow flag lap, but nonetheless, he had a good race in 4th.
Let's see, Peter Murray doesn't have a sector 2, so I'm guessing that the lap was invalidated.
Okay, so Eagle Eye Sean spotted that one.
Yes.
Because all the wheels to the right of the white line.
Monet deploy in sector 1. Let's see what Monet can do. Currently sitting in 7th place. Unfortunately, he did say he's got a slightly bad connection. Sorry, he's in 8th place. He's been demoted by D Nash. D Nash just put in a good time.
Yeah, PBs for every sector for D Nash Singh. So that puts him up, and that's a very good qualifying for D Nash. He's had his moments in this Porsche Supercup series so far, moments of brilliance, and certainly this is one of them, because that's a really good time to put in so late in qualifying and take him up into 7th position.
But Monet's coming to get the position back, because personal best in sector 1. Let's see if he gets personal best in sector 2. It's close.
His personal best in sector 1 is about 0.04 of a second slower than D Nash. Let's see what he does in sector 2. But certainly, if you're into the hundredths of a second, then the race is certainly going to be very interesting in mid-pack.
I'll correct you on that. It's not 0.0, it's about 0.00.
That's what I mean.
Yes, it's a 34.109 for D Nash and a 34.150 for Monet.
And Monet puts in a personal best in sector 2 as well, which is about 0.1 of a second quicker than D Nash. So this might swap around if you can keep it consistent through sector 3.
It's very close. Nice juggling between them in the sector times.
Right, and this late in qualifying. So just to give you an idea, we have 4 minutes to go.
And D Nash is currently sitting in the pits at the moment as well, so he can still get out if he's quick enough. Let's see, does Monet jumps up to 6th place. Great position there.
Right, so he's swapped that one around. So he knocks Julian Brains down as well as D Nash Singh. So Monet finds himself in the top 1/3 of the field, which is a great place to start. He'll be on row 3.
Right, Chandre starting his lap. Currently in 4th place.
The lean green machine, that I call it. Just helps. They tend to take the same colors with them in whatever classes they race, which helps us to remember them. So Gendre's lean green machine is easily recognized. It's the only car that is that shade of green. Julian Brains runs a dark metallic green, just off memory. As I said before, Chris Collison, a black and blue car. Jandre Dippenaar runs in, got to get it right now, red and white.
Yes.
If I take it, yeah. So everything. And Gerrit Beekes runs the Flying Bumblebee.
Speaking of Gerrit Beekes, something that we haven't seen really this season. Gerrit is only in 3rd place at the moment, so he's not even on the front row.
Yeah, maybe he'll have a race strategy rather than a qualifying strategy, who knows. But one thing that is also we've missed in the fun of the fair is that Chris Collison leads Jandre and Gerrit by half a second. But, Jandre. And this gets confusing because it's Jandre Dippenaar and Jandre de Tooy. So Jandre Dippenaar, 0.497 behind Chris. And Gerrit Beekes is 0.521 behind Chris. So that's 0.024 of a second that separates 2nd and 3rd position in quali. If
Nice
my
drifting by Gerrit
is accurate. So, yeah, very, very close stuff.
Yeah, the names can be quite a tongue twister when you're in the heat of battle with a Jandre and a Jandre. So, yeah, excuse us if we do get it wrong on occasion.
Yeah.
So Garrett, fastest overall in the first sector by quite a margin as well.
So as you said, Dennis, we expected him to be higher up, and maybe he's just been, well, we don't want to say he's been sandbagging, because I'm sure everybody tries for their best. But as we know in other formulas as well, you keep your best lap for last, but that's a tricky thing to do because you never know what might happen. There might be a yellow flag that comes out, and then you've got to slow down for the yellow and that sort of thing. But Gerrit is certainly on a good lap at this stage.
So he was right on the line there, so I hope that was safe because it was very much on the line. He might have been a fraction over. If he was a fraction over, then this lap would be invalidated.
In my mind, he was inside the white line with all of or with both sets of wheels. So he was on the rumble strip, but definitely not on the track side of the white line.
And he's lost a bit of time in the middle sector.
Yeah, it gives him a black, which says, yes, it acknowledges that he's come past, but certainly nothing better than what he's done before.
And he's coming into the pits, so he's abandoning that lap.
So maybe he did get a notice, and with 42 seconds to go, somehow I don't think much else is going to happen.
Well, Jean's right here. He's got the chicane to do, and then he'll be starting laps. So he'll be the last driver to finish.
How much time does he have? It's counting down, 25 seconds, so he's going to make the start of the lap. And that will be the last lap. Is he the only car still on track? There are a few others.
There are a few others. Sean Olivier is still on track. Peter Geldenhuys is still on track. Perhaps we can just have a look at Peter Geldenhuys. He's on an outlap, so he won't make it. And they deploy, I think, is also on an outlap, so won't make it. The session has now officially timed out. Sean Olivier is on a lap, but not a personal best in Sector 1. Christian Lavas also on a lap. I'm not sure if it's a time lap. It is. He's nearing the end of it. Personal best in Sector 1 and Sector 2.
He's in 13th, so he might jump a position or so. How far is he behind Donovan? It's in the 0.3 of a second or 0.2 of a second. So there's a chance that Christian might improve.
It's very wide there in the final corner, so and it actually did accept it, and he went up to 12th place.
Yes, so he knocks Donovan for Mark one position down.
Jean de Toy currently not very fast in the first sector. Let's see if he can put together a stunning middle and final sector.
If one looks at it, it's the same second, but where the other guys have done 0.4s and 0.5s, he did a 0.8 or almost a 0.9. So it's 0.4 of a second off just in Sector 1.
I think it was Jeandre that in the practice session he did something and he lost his setup. He forgot to save it, or he was fiddling and he had to start from scratch. So possibly struggling with setup, although he's just done the fastest middle sector, so whatever he's done, it seems to work in the middle sector.
For him, certainly a quick time. 54 actually dead, which is quicker than anybody above or below him. So just interesting, it doesn't show as purple on mine. So somewhere along the line, somebody must have had a quicker middle sector.
Drifting it there out of the second last corner.
Yeah. It looks spectacular, but it's not good. And they're also going beyond both sets of tires beyond. Let's see if the...
Jumps up to second. Wow. Nicely gained there. I believe that's the end of qualifying. I think everyone has now officially crossed the line.
Just quickly, Dennis. Second, third, and fourth, 0.491, 0.497, 0.521 off the race, the P1 qualifier. So all within, give or take, 100th of a second here and there. They are half a second behind, and the three of them are separated by virtually nothing. So 0.01 of a second, split second, third, and fourth position. It's going to be interesting racing.
All right, let's jump to an ad break. We'll be back shortly. Alright, so welcome back everyone. We of course are live for race 1 of the Weldmech Porsche Supercup round 4, coming to you live from Silverstone. It's a 30-minute race. Drivers are heading out on track now for the formation lap. I'm your commentator Dennis Mitchell, joined once again by Sean Woodgate.
Good evening, everybody, and an interesting qualifying round we had, specifically second, third, and fourth. And why I mention that specifically is they are within, all three of them are within 0.5 or thereabouts of the P1 qualifier. So that's going to make those three cars very competitive with each other, and it's going to make for a very interesting race. And if they keep each other up, then Chris Collison might just disappear into the sunset.
Let's have a look at our starting order. So, starting in pole position is not Gerrit Bierkes, it is Chris Collison. The return of Chris Collison. Jean de Toy in second, Jandre Dippenaar in third, Gerrit Bierkes only in fourth place. We have Sean Olivier in fifth place, Monet Deploy in sixth place, Julian Brains in seventh place, and Dean Ash Singh in eighth place. In 9th place, Peter Murray. In 10th place, Peter Geldenes. 11th place, Rian van der Westhuizen. Christian Labas in 12th place. I'm not sure if Peter Murray is in, but Donovan van Mark 13th, Monet de Toy in 14th, Maurice van Wyk 15th, Andre Hildebrandt in 16th. In 17th place, Arjen Belder, and in 18th place, Harvey Goos. I believe Peter Murray got disconnected, so I don't think he is in the race. It is showing there on the grid, but I believe he's not in at the moment.
Which is a pity, because it's always nice to have a full field cars. Here we can see Jean-Ray Dutoy and André Dippenaar going around, and we expect a heavy battle from them. I think the pole man just has to get a good start, but I recall, and I'm not sure if it's in the Porsche Challenge or Supercup, but in one of the starts that we've had earlier this year, that Chris Collison has had a terrible start, and even though he was on pole or second, I think he was passed by 4 or 5 cars by the time they got to turn 1, and he did get back on the podium, but really had to make a meal of it to make it all the way around.
I think Chris was at the last round, but yeah, he had a hard time. He's still recovering from his surgery he had on his leg, so it did struggle a little bit, so it faded very fast. And he says he's a lot better in a week's break that he's had between races, so hopefully we don't have any issues with him tonight, and his health is all good, so fingers crossed for Chris and his recovery.
I'm not sure who it was in the background, Christian Lovas, Donovan for Mark, Mornay Dutoy, somebody around about there, decided to take the agricultural route down the straight, which was very odd.
Yes, it was one of the darker cars. It might have been Julian, who in the background there looks like Christian Labas, I think is the driver that's gone off.
Yeah, it was about in that position on the qualifying sheet that far back in the field.
Right, the drivers now form on the grid.
Right, and everybody does make it round the corner to see the start lights. So it's not as big a field as Silverstone can cater for, so everybody will see the start lights.
Right, let's take the formation lap away. It is now officially race time. Peter unfortunately has replied saying that his VR crashed, so unfortunately he could make it. I'll see if I can get him to join us in commentary as we head off. The races go.
Oh, and there's a bit of an event in the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think that must be Rian van Westhuizen. Looks as though Harvey Goos has made quite a few positions up. Yes, this is... No, that's not Harvey's car. You can definitely see a big gap between this bunch. Then there's a big gap. And then is that the BP colored car that seems to be running in isolation and off the circuit? And there's Harvey. He's made up 1, 2, 3 positions at least with whatever happened in front of him. So yes, the pack is split completely already, and Harvey decides, well, this is my chance and I'm going to take it, and he gets away fairly well. So at this stage of the race, an event off the start already, and behind Harvey, and they'd all qualified ahead of him, Andre Hildebrandt, Marius van Wyk, Arjan Belder, Dinesh Singh and Mornay Dutoy. Now Dinesh had qualified, was it 6th or 7th, and now finds himself in 16th position. So I just wonder whether he just forgot to hit the start button. There he comes now. So
rear wing is missing.
Yeah. So would be, oh yeah, there's no grip on the back end of that car whatsoever. So he's probably going to bring that into the pits, which is a great pity, because we just said that he'd had such a good qualifying session. Chris Collison, in the meantime, we said that he has had bad starts before. He certainly hasn't had a bad start tonight. And Jean-Ray Dutoy right there with him. But look at Jan-Ray Dippenaar. He has Gerrit Beekes, the Flying Bumblebee, which was in 4th, which is now up into 3rd. So Gerrit Beekes has also had a good start.
Well, this is a position we haven't seen Gerrit in very often.
He's been very quick in this formula so far this year. But Chris Collison maybe has just, with his return, has brought things, I wouldn't say back to normality, but has added a different flavor to the top 4. But they're not letting him get away. Jean-Ray, I think, has kept all the practice he had today out on circuit at Tony Rust Raceway in Windhoek, and he has still got the adrenaline pumping, and he crosses the line very close behind Jean-Ray crosses 0.7 of a second behind Chris Collison.
Now it looks like Gerrit is starting to challenge Jandre a little bit takes a different line. He's going to take the wide line, bring a cut back here. Might get up the inside of Jandre if he gets better drive, which he doesn't. Moving around quite a lot.
Genre using a little bit of the gravel there, which is not good this early in the race, because certainly that'll mean if he's got just that little bit of reduction of drive being on the gravel, that Chris Collison's going to be able to get away from him. So if you look ahead from Gerrit Beukes' car, and Gerrit Beukes puts it up on the inside, does he give space? Now he's on the outside of the corner, which is not where he wants to be, but certainly Jan-Ray Dippenaar is challenging really hard, and Gerrit Beukes is holding him off, and Jean-Ray de Toy in front of them. He's in the lean green machine, and he's going to see if he can hold on to that position. So Gerrit Beukes is still competitive, but I think with Jan-Ray Dippenaar pushing him, or not pushing him, giving him very good notification that he's right there in his rearview mirrors, and behind them in fifth is Sean Olivier in the orange colored car. So Sean's also having a good run at this stage, and they seem to have broken away from the rest of the pack. Behind them is Mornay de Ploy, who was quite a long way back. As you see there, Mornay comes around now in the second of the orange looking cars, and Pieter Geldenhuys behind them.
I'll just have a quick squiz at the start again in a moment. I'm just going to see if I can find that for us.
It certainly looks as though Chris Collison has got 3 or 4 car lengths of breathing space, which is nice for him to have. And we've known that if he can make the tyres last race his own sort of race, then he is competitive right to the end. But I can guarantee you that the 4 cars behind him are certainly not going to let up at all during this race. They'll be trying to get back at him. And it's all or nothing sort of scenario. They are going to try all they can to make that position back.
Just looking back on the field here, just looking at the start while we're watching Sean Olivier. So we can just see what's happening with Yonder. Yonder is starting to... Oh, sorry, not Yonder. Gerrit is definitely challenging at the moment.
Yeah, he's become a real nuisance. And as we said, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 straights that you can use. The Kerry is up on the inside, but then is the track going to break away to the right? Yes, it does. And that's the thing about Silverstone. It's normally a combination of corners. So you might have good position, track position for the one corner, but as soon as the change of direction happens, then you're on the outside and you have to give it up again and then rethink the whole situation. Right, let's just see where they are now. Is that Hanger and
So just doing a replay of the start as we see the massive prang in the background there.
Yeah, that was somebody driving up the back of Dinesh. But why did Dinesh find himself? If that was Dinesh, it might have been somebody else. Let's just have a look at.
I think it was Mornay de Toy who was involved in that.
So it's going to be interesting to see who the DNFs are at this stage. Yeah, Mornay de Toy is the DNF, and Dinesh Singh is a lap down. So something must have happened there. Somebody goes off in the background. Maybe that was the Dinesh incident. Is this still on the replay, or is this live now?
This is live again.
Okay, there's one car that went off in the background there. So expect some changes on the lap scoring monitor as the rest of the field reshuffles once they come across one of the sectors. But yeah, Chris Collison is gone. Jean-Ray de Toy, Gerrit Beukes and Jan-Ray Dippenaar are fighting for second, third and fourth. But the gap at 1.6 seconds for Chris Collison, if everything holds and lasts. Racing is a strange thing that sort of you have to stay concentrated. 23 and a half minutes to go. But yeah, 1.8 seconds is a quick lead to have in such a short time. And yeah, you can see Gerrit Beukes making it very difficult for Jean-Ray again. He's up on the he's on the outside of the circuit, and Jean-Ray is drifting wide, but he's giving space. So he comes
very
back.
Close. Wow.
Yeah. And of course, now track limits comes into play as well. So if you deem to, to gain advantage, but I think this is it. Gerrit Beukes has had enough, and he puts it up on the inside. And I think that's behind them was that Jan-Ray.
It was. He tried to turn in tighter and was obviously loading up the tires and had a little bit of contact, and that was the rear came around.
Yeah. Now, they do say that if your grip ability in the front wheels is less than what your rear wheels are driving on a rear wheel driven car, then those front wheels become a pivot point, and that's exactly what happened there. So already a change up in the top 5. Let's see if he's going to get back. Where's Mornay Deploy up to now? Mornay's up to 5th. So Jandre Dippenaar, after that mishap, he finds himself in 7th position, and he was running so strong. But Gerrit Beekers up to 2nd, Jandre Detoy now to 3rd. Now let's keep in mind 1.5, 1.6 seconds, that's Gerrit Beekers behind Chris Collison. Oh, and a big off there. Trying to see.
Rian van der Westhuizen and getting it all wrong there. Now under threat from Christian Labas.
So even you've got to keep your eyes, you can't look away at the lap scoring monitor for an instant, because then things change on the track right in front of you. So Christian Labas, he makes the pass, he drifts wide. This is 2 wheels on the gravel, and that certainly Rian is not going to give you the grip that you want as he comes back at Christian again. But Christian goes apex, then drifts wide, and this is one of those flip-flop corners that changes direction twice and then comes back at you again. They are still fighting for position for all they're worth.
And we've got Julian Brains right behind him. So Julian slipped back slightly in the race, currently in 10th place.
I wonder if he wasn't involved with whatever caused D Nash's accident. But Julian certainly had a very good qualifying and not running in the position that he qualified. Oops, realizing there's somebody there, and then just changes direction. Julian Brains comes up to the 2 of them, and they'll keep each other busy, which gives Julian a chance to catch up to them again. So battles raging all over in this field, and it's becoming quite spread out, believe it or not, because the guys are keeping each other busy. And if we look at the lap scoring monitor, let's have a look at the gap. It was 1.6 between Chris and Gerrit. It's still 1.6.
Yeah, at the moment, I think this is the closest gap in the field, apart from the one with Andre Hildebrand. Andre Hildebrand and Arjen Belder having a good battle at the moment.
Christian Labas and Rian van der Westhuizen now separated by 0.2 of a second, so that's also close. And right at the back, as you said, Andre Hildebrand with Arjan Belder, that's 0.4 of a second.
Oh, Arjan loses it there. The rear end going around, and unfortunately Andre ended up touching him while he was sideways because there was nowhere for him to go.
Yeah, so 72 is Andre Hildebrand. He's one of the veterans as well. So he's running, it's Marius van Wyk, Gawigo's Andre Hildebrand, I think, in the veteran class. Running 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and I think it's only the 3 of them that are running in that class. So DNF for Donovan and D Nash seeing now a lap down. So I don't think
merits to D Nash. Sorry to butt in, but I see he's been into the pits and he's had his rear wing fitted, so that takes a bit of time. He is a lap down, but he is still in the race.
Okay, that's great news. So he's theoretically behind Donovan, who's got a DNF, but he's got a lot of catching up to do, and one never knows what might happen ahead of you, and whether you can actually get the position back. Oh, and as we say that, is that Arjan that went off?
It is indeed, yes, unfortunately.
Now that does track bites, it really does. Number 26, Arjan Belder, he's off, but it doesn't look as though he's got any damage. He's still got all his rear view mirrors. He's got the rear wing, so he lives to race another day in the current setup. But Gerrit Beekers, 1.7 seconds behind Chris Collison. And look at the back, Jandre Detoy, he is 3.34 seconds behind Gerrit Beekers. So certainly looks as though that little mistake from Jandre there has cost him quite a bit. Sean Olivier is 2.2 seconds behind Jandre. So certainly something that is worth fighting for. Jandre Dippenaar, we know that he made that mistake a few laps ago, down to 7th, still in 7th, and less than a second behind Pieter Geldnys.
And not far, I think it's 2 seconds ahead of them, or 2.5 seconds is Mornay Deploy. So Jandre can still pick off a few places. He's still got 18 minutes to go, so he could maybe get past Pieter, maybe Mornay, maybe catch up to Sean, so he could maybe salvage 4th place.
Right, and the points are definitely worth it, especially in this championship that still has a long way to go. There are 2 races per evening of racing, So double points, as it were, and then bonus points for qualifying and fastest race per lap. But at this stage, Jan-Ray Dippenaar is 0.3 of a second behind Pieter Geldnys. So he's pushing hard to catch up to and pass Pieter Geldnys. The hunter and the hunted, as I always say, in these shots that we see them here. The rear-facing camera from Pieter's car at the top right, and Jan-Ray chasing in. Oh, and here he comes, a mistake made there, and the track does drift or go to the right, so it's like on a plate. Unless a decision was made by Pieter, listen, this guy's catching me, he's going to pass me, let me get out of his way and have it be over and done with, and I can concentrate on my own race rather than trying to block him, which if that is the case, then well done, sir. A very good decision to make, or a bit of a lockup.
Sometimes you can gain as well by someone faster coming past you. You learn from them. As a race driver, you tend to learn quite quickly. You can sometimes tag to the back of them and suddenly drop your lap times because you can see what they're doing in anger. When you're doing practice and that, you don't have that advantage because most drivers don't give away everything in a practice session.
Yeah. So if you've been around Zandvoort in any of the formulas, you'll notice that some of the corners, 1, 2, 3 of them that I can think of very quickly, are banked. But this, of course, having been an airfield in yesteryear, is flat. So when the cars turn into the corners and they sort of trail brake, it's not unlikely to see a bit of a lockup, as we did see the car ahead of Pieter Geldnys, Jan-Ray Dippenaar, have a little bit of lockup a few corners ago. And that was literally just on the entry into the corner. He was still just trailing the brakes going in. This is car number 9, going very well, that same Jan-Ray Dippenaar that I was talking about. And it's Pieter Geldnys a second or so behind him. So losing a bit of distance, even though Jan-Ray had made that mistake under braking on entry in the corner. Jan-Ray's drifting quite a lot, which will put a bit of pressure on those rear tires.
I was actually about to say, let's watch the gap between himself and Monet. It was 3 seconds. And as he started to drift, you could see how hard he's pushing. It dropped by 0.3, and then it suddenly went back up to 2.9. So you could see he lost 0.2 by sliding it like that.
It looks good to the people that sit in the grandstands, but if you check the net result thereof on the splits on the lap scoring monitor, you can see that it's not that such a good thing. And also, if you think they've still got time to race, then you've got to think of the overall endurance of the tire. They're not yet halfway with this race. There's more than 15 minutes to go, and already you're putting the tires under stress to the extent that he is. So something to keep in mind. But we were saying somewhere in between all the melee, the fun of the fair, Gerrit Beekes has put in the best lap time of everybody. So he's done a 204.8, let's call it an 8. Compare the 204.809 by Chris Collison. They differ by thousandth of a second, but it's that bonus point that makes the difference at the end of the day, and that's what Gerrit Beekes is racing for, the Flying Bumblebee, or there he goes, the Humble Hornet, as I've also called him. But he's trying his best, but at this stage, 2 seconds and thereabouts, 1.9 behind Chris Collison. There he's got Chris Collison in sight. A nice aerial shot there. And I've always said that racing drivers, when they actually have the guy that's leading in sight, that actually does get them excited. And I don't think somebody like Gerrit will take chances unnecessarily. If he runs a smooth race, it's Julian Brains, and Julian is trying to catch up to Christian Labas, I think it is. Who is it that span there? Julian.
That was Julian, yes.
Yeah, just as we cross to Julian, we spin on him. Dennis, how can you do that?
That was a little quick replay of him spinning there. I thought I'd put that up. I thought there might be an incident between himself and Christian, but it wasn't. It was just Julian losing the rear end.
Yeah, so that'll mean Julian is going to be now 4.4 seconds behind Christian. So he was right up there with him. One mistake, one spin, and you have lost 4 seconds in the twinkling of an eye. Gerrit 1.8. What did you say the gap was between Gerrit and Chris?
I actually wasn't focusing on that. I was focusing on the gap between Jan-Ray and Monet, which has gone from 3 seconds down to 2.1. But the gap's coming down between first and second. So Gerrit is on the move. He's moving forward. He's chasing down Chris.
Right, and of course, depending how you've set up your car, whether you want the top speed or whether you want the cornering ability, and Silverstone, a bit of lock up there, he even leaves a black line on the tire, so that won't be good for that right rear tire. So Silverstone is a combination of both, but my opinion, and I'm not a racing driver, that the setup has to lean a bit more for cornering ability than straight line ability, because there are 3 straights, but not one of them is long enough that you want to actually have less downforce for the top speed, my opinion.
So this gap is down to 1.4 seconds. We've got the gap between Yandre and Monet down to 1.8 seconds. So those are 2 battles that are on the way. And then there are some bigger gaps throughout the field. We've got 2 DNFs. Monet du Toit has a DNF. We have Donovan Vermaak with a DNF. And then, of course, we have Dinash, who is a lap down, unfortunately. Arjan's also a lap down. I think that was due to that incident we saw when he went off. I think that was into maggots.
So certainly, Arjan and Dinash, they are at least ahead of the DNFs now. And Dinash, even though, yes, credits for coming back, he's 45 seconds behind Arjan. So a long way to go. But Javi Gous is in 13th. So he almost finds himself at the bottom end of the middle 1/3 of this field. So Javi will be chuffed just to be up there and doing very well. As you said, the spacing, Gerrit Beekes now 1.2, 1.4 seconds behind Chris Collison, depending who accelerates or brakes. Of course, the changes come in the splits between the cars, but 11 minutes 20 still to go in this race. There's Javi Gous in his very characteristic colors. You can recognize that with the walking stick across the road. So
currently, Maurice van Wyk is leading the Veterans Championship from Andre Hildebrand. So Maurice in 11th, Andre is in 12th, and Harvey is in 13th. So those are our 3 veterans in the race at the moment.
Arjan's indicated on the lap scoring monitor in blue. What's the reason for that, Dennis?
He doesn't yet have his own skin, so we'll have this sorted out for the next round. So he's currently using a default skin, so that's why the color coding is showing as blue.
Okay. So yeah, the rest of the competitors in red, other than the veterans in green.
This battle is down to 1 second. We have Monet closing in on Yandre. Sorry, Yandre's actually got past Monet. I'm not sure if Monet had an incident because that gap suddenly changed.
Let's look at the last lap time. A 207.7 by Monet and a 206.3 by Yandre. So that says to me that Monet made a mistake somewhere.
I'm going to see if I can find it for a replay, and let's see if we can figure out who did what.
It's a full second, so of course that does make a big difference. Car number 3, Gerrit Beekes, is catching up to Chris Collison. It's 1.2 seconds now, but you can see the gap visually now coming down. And we did say that it's nice to have Chris back, and Chris is quick and all that sort of thing. Oh, and a DNF for Christian Labas, which is bad news. It must be an accident. It's a big pity to have another one fall down the leaderboard. But certainly been 3 cars out of this race so far. So Monet du Toit, Donovan Vermaak and Christian Labas eventually will fall off the leaderboard. But here's Gerrit Beekes coming along. And it's now 1.4. So as we say, it changes depending who's where on the circuit and whether you're in the corner or whether you're on a straight and on the throttle. But there you can see the gap between the race leader, Chris Collison. As he disappears out of picture, he will appear here, going towards the left. And there's Gerrit Beekes in the black and yellow car in second position, chasing hard.
I think Monet just had a problem because he is weaving a little bit around and then moves over, as we're going to just jump to it here. We see he just sort of moves over, allows Yandre past. So I think he had some kind of issue, and rather, maybe it's, I know he did say he had a connection issue, maybe he decided to move out of the way so that he doesn't cause any issues. So, yeah, good driving there by Monet.
Yeah, he seems to take the corner 2 or 3 times in getting through the corner, so maybe readjusting. If he has connection issues, then effectively he'll be racing a little bit blind for a microsecond or 2, and then has to adjust compared to where the car finds itself in the corner. But somebody who's a long way back is Andre du Toit, 6.8 seconds behind Gerrit Beekes, and Gerrit Beekes still now just over a second. Not quite 1.1, but just over a second behind Chris Collison. So that might change, and more than likely, well, he'll challenge hard. I can guarantee you that will Gerrit Beekes, and with 8 minutes still to go. So
lots to happen.
Per lap. Yeah, 2 minutes per lap, a little bit more. So depending when they cross the finish line, they could be doing, if I said 8, that's 4. They could do 4, maybe even 5 laps of this circuit. If they cross the finish line before time runs out, then that will be their final lap. So they might run into extra time beyond the 30 minutes.
We have the Hunter and the Hunted again.
Yeah. The Bumblebee chases the blue and black car of Chris Collison.
I can just hear the Jaws music playing at the moment.
Yeah. So, lock up there from Chris. And it's interesting to see that footage from the rear-facing camera out of his car. And it'll be music to the ears of Gerrit Beekes. Because, as you said before, the guys don't give away much in practice. But certainly when it comes to racing, you've got to race all you're worth. And Gerrit will make a note that he's a little bit vulnerable in that corner. And maybe then mount an attack out for that corner, for track position, definitely.
But we've seen in prior races that Chris, even if he does get caught, he can make the car wide enough that he can defend his position. So we'll see. Gerrit is catching at quite a rate. Will he be able to defend, or maybe Chris is just suffering from a bit of fatigue with his leg? Because his pace has sort of dropped off, unless it's just tyre wear. But Gerrit is right on him now.
Gerrit himself had a nice slide, sorry to talk over you there, but as we say that, he's right there with Chris. So it's going to be interesting as to what happened. Chris is running right-hand side of the road, and the corner goes to the left. It's going to change direction again a little bit later. There it does now. So, as you say, he's not taking the apex at all. There he gets to the apex now and holds the apex. So he's not allowing the Bumblebee in on his right-hand side as all. And here's the third time that this corner breaks away to the right. So he's certainly holding that line as much as he possibly can. And this will be, I think it's Abbey and then Farm Curve. Let's see the curves away to the left. I always struggle to find myself on this circuit if it happens out of the blue. It's Farm Curve.
No, it's Maggots Beckett.
Is it Maggots Beckett's? Yeah, see, that's what's confusing about this one. Is there going to be, it'll roll off the throttle there.
Love tap there.
Yeah. But no love lost between these drives. Yes, there's the hanger straight, which you recognize because of that pit exit. As we said, they've got more than one straight that they use in different classes of racing. So this will now be Stowe corner, which is a fast sweeping right-hander. Then they'll go through Vale, which is it's more a place than what it is a corner. You see there, I don't think it bothers the drivers too much. Before they come into the chicane, and then the continuous curve right for Club, and then they'll be into the Hamilton straight again. Right, that's Club. Oh, and
Gerrit getting thrown off slightly by Chris. I think Chris is a bit slow mid-apex. Maybe it is tyre wear.
Yeah, this is Abbey, then the Farm Curve, then you'll see a sharp right-hander is Village. They're coming up to that now. He positions the car to block the line. He'll drift it across properly to block the line for the loop, because the loop goes left, and more left into Aintree. And once they get out of Aintree, then it's the Wellington straight again. So there, Chris has just grabbed himself some breathing space for the Wellington straight before they get into Brooklands, which is left again. But that doesn't last very long. Then it's a long, continuous right-handing turner for called Luffield. Gerrit right there with him. So this is Luffield. And they turn some more. And then they'll go more right-hand into Woodcote. Then there's a bit of a straight again before they get to Cops. And that's the section that, as Dennis was saying, is so well known. There's Cops, Maggots, Beckett's Chapel again, and into the Hanger Straight, which we described at the beginning when we latched onto these two drivers.
Just a reminder for those watching, remember to hit the like and subscribe button if you're enjoying what you're watching. And of course, thank you very much to Weldmech for sponsoring this series. So as we see their page here, you can head over to facebook.com/welding mechanic to find out more about Weldmech and what they could offer you.
I think in the lead up to the race, they actually show that they build racing chairs for sim racing. So I think that must be a skill, get that all together.
Yes, it's quite fancy looking ones as well. So if you need a racing rig, you can give Peter a call. I'm sure you can construct one customized specifically to your needs.
Big slide there, which is not good for Gerrit. I think he would have lost a car length from where he was. And just that little mistake there, you can see that all of a sudden a little breathing room for Chris Collison.
And in the background here, we see Sean Olivier is starting to catch to Jean-Andre, so maybe Jean-Andre's tires are starting to go. So this could be an interesting change for the podium.
Yes, indeed. 2 minutes 36 to go. So let's see where the race leaders are, considering they're circulating about the current laps they're doing are 206s and 207s. And here are the race leaders. So we just need to see if they don't get to the finish line and time runs out, then this is the last lap. But if they do get to the finish line, no, actually, they will get one more lap in because it's only a 205 regardless of where they are. So this is the second to last, regardless of where they are. And they'll cross the start line to start the final lap as we go below 2 minutes now.
And also just going back to the YouTube channel, so thank you to all the comments there. Thank you to the comments from Stanton Augustus. Unfortunately, he's working tonight. We have Samir Birkus looking out for Garrett at the moment, so Garrett is chasing really hard. Peter Hockley saying, come on Chris, and Carl Steek saying he forgot about tonight's race. So hopefully Carl, hopefully we see you at the next one.
Now, if you're watching the YouTube channel, go and watch it again, and you'll see the schedule of races right at the beginning, before the start of the race. It gets put up on display, so no excuses for missing the next one or any of the ones thereafter.
Yes, and thankfully we have all the battery backups now, so we won't be missing any rounds due to load shedding.
Yeah. Right there again, Chris Collison. He actually takes the car. If you look there, the darker stripe running diagonally across the road, that's the racing line. And Chris Collison elected not to run that line. It has benefits and there are negatives as well. You pick up a bit of rubber on your tires, and that's not the thing you want to do because you lose grip. But if your competitor behind you is challenging, you're effectively blocking his path. So let's see if they're coming up to the finish line. There's a grandstand.
He's there too fast. He got you 30 seconds too quick. He's going to have to do another lap.
Oh my goodness, I wasn't even watching the stopwatch, so they were that far back. So one more lap, and now it is definitely the last lap. So, and it's a lot of defending to do because Gerrit Birkus, but then again, that said, Gerrit Birkus has been running the same lap as what Chris has, obviously, because they're in the same race. But Chris has probably a little bit more tyre wear, maybe just because of his driving style. Gerrit, maybe having the experience, has a bit more tyre wear left.
Oh,
but
Gerrit loses it.
Circuit, no, that's it. Race decided, and Gerrit might even not make it back for second place. Here comes Jean-Ray de Toey. A wheel spin on the grass. You're not going to help much there. Jean-Ray de Toey comes along. Sean Olivier comes along and passes. And with all the grass on the tyres, that's second and third done and dusted. Gerrit Birkus will be lucky to finish fourth.
Chris will be breathing a sigh of relief there because I'm sure he was panicking because Gerrit was all over him. It was going to probably be the end of the lap. Lunge from Gerrit, and unfortunately just too much on the grass, and that was it, lost the rear end.
And as I say, that's the fat lady that picks up the microphone and gets ready to do her rendition of whatever aura she does sing. But Chris Collison's going to be really chuffed because Jean-Ray de Toey is 8 seconds behind him. Sean Olivier is only 1.3 seconds behind Jean-Ray, but I think at this stage of tyre life, Sean's not going to challenge. Jan-Ray Dippenaar in fourth, Gerrit Birkus in fifth, Morne de Plooi in sixth, and nobody close enough to mount a challenge that I can see. So that's about the way that they'll finish.
Looked like Chris was going a bit slow through the S's there, so I'm not sure if he's just backing off to save himself because he doesn't have to go fast, but if he backs off too much, he's got to be careful. These two might catch him.
Now they're down to below 5 seconds now, so 4.6 as they got through the last sector where the times get down to 4.1, so they're catching him very, very quickly. So maybe the rubber is falling off the cliff, as they say. So there he goes. Is this the start-finish line?
Yep, that's it. That's the race win. So he made it.
Yeah, so
well done,
he's going to
Chris.
be very, very happy that he can slow the car down now and breathe a sigh of relief. He's also going to be very happy that he's up to race pace that quickly after a little bit of an absence. Jean-Ray de Toey in second position, 3.3 seconds further adrift. Sean Olivier in third. So that's cars number 22, number 737. I didn't mention the Boeing Brigade once tonight. and car number 137, Sean Olivier, in third position.
So that was a very interesting race. Peter Geldenhuys coming across the line now for 7th place. In 8th place we have Rian van der Westhuizen.
Few self-induced errors, but this is a very tricky circuit to drive. It must be such a lovely circuit because it really is a driver's circuit.
Yeah, I think it's one of the circuits that most of the drivers enjoy the most, because it is a driver's circuit. This, along the likes of Spa, definitely circuits that the drivers find they have more input in their results.
Yeah. You have to be good at what you're doing to get a good result, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's a driver's circuit. For those that aren't aware, the driver can have more impact than what the car can have. So if the driver's in a top driver in an inferior car, he can level the playing fields a bit on a track like this or in wet weather conditions.
Talking of which, what is the weather doing?
It's definitely going to be a wet start for race 2, so that should mix up the field a bit as well.
Is that Chris that's come to a stop?
Yes, I think he's on his in-lap. He might have just run out of fuel on his in-lap.
I'm not sure. Well, it is some racing, but I'm not sure whether they are required to complete the in-lap. But they can jump to pit, I suppose.
Yeah, we don't need to get any fuel samples, so they can cut it as fine as they like.
Yeah.
But we're going to jump to an ad break now, because I think all the drivers have finished pretty much. It's just Rian that's going to come across the line now. So let's jump to an ad break. We'll get ready for the second race. We need to set the grid. We need to double check the weather. But we'll be back probably in the next 5 minutes or so. So stay with us. And remember to like and subscribe button while you're waiting for race 2. So we'll catch you then. Right, welcome back everybody to race 2 of the Weldmech Porsche Supercup round 4. Race 2 coming to you live from the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in the United Kingdom. As you see, the weather has got very gloomy. I'm your commentator Dennis Mitchell, joined once again by Sean Woodgate. Good afternoon or good evening, Sean.
Good evening. I thought we actually had one of the Christmas circuits named after the reindeer, like Donner and Blitzen. Certainly, this is going to be a very different race. Visibility is going to play a part, and I think being in the lead is going to have a big advantage. But certainly, your driving skills in the wet are going to be thoroughly tested in these conditions.
Yes, it's sopping wet at the moment. So as we see, we are currently at Silverstone, which of course is probably the home of wet weather racing. I'm sure most British drivers have some, if they've raced, they have some wet weather skill.
I remember summer in the UK last year, it was a Wednesday.
Right, the starting grid for race 2 is Chris Collison in pole position, Jean-Louis du Toit in second place, Jandre Dippenaar in third, and Gerrit Beekes in fourth. In fifth place, we have Sean Olivier. In sixth place, Monet Deploy, Julian Brains in seventh place, and Dean Ashsing in eighth place. In 9th place, Peter Murray. In 10th place, Peter Gelderneys. In 11th place, Rian van der Westhuizen. And in 12th place, Donovan Vermaak. As we see some guys going off already. In 13th place, Marius van Wyk. 14th place, Andre Hildebrand. 15th place, Arjen Belder. And 16th place, Harvey Goos. I believe that is it. Only 16 drivers in this race.
But the other thing, I was not sure whether that's actually Chris Collison and who was behind him that disappeared off the track. I wonder, do they now have to start at the back of the grid?
I think they can make their way back through the field, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, there comes Chris. And the other thing that jumps to mind, if the weather improves and they actually go to dry weather tires at a later stage, it means that tire wear becomes less of a factor. So you have less laps to do then on the dry weather tires.
Yes, correct.
So interesting it's going to be. It looks as though it was the pole sitter and the man behind him that just managed to have a flash of brilliance that they will try not to recall and disappear off the circuit, but they seem to be back into position now.
So hopefully they don't get any penalties from the server. I think it's because we don't have a safety car, they have to just be in position by the end of the lap. With a safety car, I think your actual formation lap is counted as a lap, and therefore it will penalize you if you do things incorrectly.
Yeah, as you say, it's a static start, and that in itself is going to be a challenge, is how much throttle to give when the lights go off with the track as wet as what it is.
Yes, and in the background we saw someone going off. Looks like the rain has stopped already.
Well, that's going to be interesting. So they're just probably going to try and stay out as long as they can, find the wet bits to cool the rubber, and then come in once the racing line dries. And then it's going to be critical to stick to the racing line because the grip off the racing line is going to be non-existent.
See the drivers slowly making their way around. You really have to tiptoe in these conditions because I think even in the dry tires you have to warm the tires up and the brakes especially for about half a lap. So in the wet conditions it must take at least a lap, maybe 2 laps to warm up the tires and the brakes. See someone on the grid swerving to avoid someone, obviously not getting the braking mark quite right. I think that is Donovan Vermaak.
Getting back to his grid slot, which is a difficult thing to do. Hope the server is forgiving.
He's putting into it. Right, as we wait for the flag to start, it has started counting down. Right. Wait for it to go. And they're away. So a very wet race 2 is underway.
Right, let's see if Chris Collison can stay ahead of Jean-Ray du Toit. The corner goes to Jean-Ray's side, the first corner. Jean-Ray gets the back end stepping all over the show, and he was in the lead for a while, was Chris Collison, all of half a second. And sorry, Jean-Ray was in the lead, and then Chris Collison came back at him, and Jean-Ray loses 2 positions there in that next set of corners to Gerrit Beekes and Jandre Dippenaar.
And they're all over them at the front there. So Garrett around the outside of Chris. So Garrett carrying good momentum there. He's got his wet weather tyres and his Wellingtons on.
He's sou'wester and he's off. Chris Collison has sort of recovered. He's in second, but notice that Chris Collison isn't running behind him, but just slightly to the one side. And I think that's for visibility, so that you can actually see where the competitor is behind you. Whereas Jan-Ray and Jean-Ray behind, when there's somebody off again, they're going to be racing. The spray isn't as bad as what I thought it would be, but saying that, for Jean-Ray de Toy in the lean green machine, he has a spray of 2 cars that he has to contend with, and visibility must be atrocious.
Yeah, I think with the track drying now, it'll probably take maybe 10 or 15 minutes before it dries. The drivers are going to have to come in for slick tires at some point. But it's just extremely wet now. They can't chance going out. If they get damaged now, then they have to pit. They have to pit and come back out with wet tires. They can't chance slick tires. They're just going to drive straight off the track.
Yeah, so everything happening and then some. 1 second that Gerrit Beekers leads from Chris Collison, but we know that it might. Oh, see, you just saw the slight waggle, and off he went was Peter Geldnys. I think lucky for him there was a gravel trap, because that, if you're sliding on grass, that just carries on and on. So the gravel trap slowed him down just enough that he didn't have to go, or the momentum didn't carry him into the barrier, but he should be back on track again, even though it is a long way back in 12th position.
As you can see on the live timing, all the drivers are running wet weather tyres at the moment.
Yes. I didn't expect anything different in these conditions. Green lights are flashing in the gloom. I do see blue skies as we look ahead from Andre Hildebrand. So Andre Hildebrand in 10th leads Marius van Wyk, who's in 13th, and Gawie Gous, who's in 15th in the veterans class.
Guys really struggling for grip, struggling to keep the car. Of course, with these cars, you can't just sort of swing in, and because of a lot of the weight at the rear, if you swing too hard in these conditions, it's just going to come around on you. So if it starts to go, you need to straighten up to go off track so that you avoid a spin.
I think rather give up a little bit of time, but keep it pointed in the right direction and then recover from there, than trying to force the car to turn the corner and then understeer and pivot and face the wrong way. But Jean-Ray de Toy is right there with Jan-Ray Dippenaar. So he likes this weather by the looks of it. But of course your brake markers will change completely. And entry and exit, there's a bit of pressure put on Jan-Ray Dippenaar. Does Jan-Ray make enough of a mistake for Jean-Ray to pass him? No, the track just turns away to the right again, which is in the favor of Jan-Ray, and he makes full use of that. But now there's a gap. And he's in there in an instant is Jean-Ray de Toy. And the road is going to the right-hand side. So that has really played into his hands. A good bit of pressure there. Not a mistake. I think it was just good driving, good positioning of the car, and knowing which corners are following and just holding on to that track position. All the tires off. Did he gain an advantage? I don't know. But then again, I'm not the server or the judge of fact that decides these things. We'll have to wait and see. He didn't gain a position from it, so I wouldn't think that he'd have to give it back.
So the gap at the front currently 1.2 seconds between Gerrit and Chris. Chris is hanging in there. He's just done the fastest first sector. Gerrit has just done the fastest middle sector. So they're both pushing extremely hard at the moment.
Mixing it up quite nicely they are. And look at the gap that they've already got to the green car of Jean-Ray de Toy, and Jean-Ray having just passed Jan-Ray. Maybe he likes this sort of driving, and he's going to be chasing after Chris Collison now. The gap at the moment, 4.3 seconds that he's behind Chris, and we'll see how that goes down, and also depending what the weather does. Certainly the rooster tails behind the cars appears to be less, but we don't see a dry line forming quite yet.
I think it'll take probably 5 or 6 laps for the puddles to subside and then the dry line to start show. Well, there it's starting to almost show. But as you can see, there's still spray.
Yeah, that's on the straight. So everybody can sort of run in a straight line astern, but I think all the lines differ around the corners, and that's why the corners take a little bit longer to actually dry up.
So we've had a bit of a mix-up in the field thanks to the weather change. So we have Gerrit at the front, so that's kind of normal. Chris challenging, so that's good. Chris is also good in the wet. Jean-Ray de Toy in third, Jan-Ray Dippenaar in fourth. Then we have Pieter Marais in fifth, Sean Olivier in sixth, Donovan from Mark up into 7th. That's a good result for Donovan so far. So he seems to be doing very well in the wet. In 8th place, Dinesh Singh. Andre Hildebrand is currently the top veteran in 9th place. So that is a fantastic result for Andre. Rene Deploy in 10th place. Peter Galdenes 11th. Rian van der Westhuizen is in 12th. In 13th, Marius van Wyk. 14th, Pavicos. 15th place, Arjun Balder. In 16th place, the DNF for Julian Brains.
I wonder if he was one of those cars that we did see go sliding in lap 1. I think it was as early as lap 1. We gave it a mention, but we didn't find out who it actually was. So I'm just trying to think now. Some of the guys, am I correct in saying that Donovan and, well, Dinesh didn't have a DNF, but he had to go in for a new rear wing in race 1. And did Donovan have a DNF in race 1?
I can't remember, to be honest.
But certainly they are well placed with the 7th and 8th, 7th for Donovan and an 8th for Dinesh. They are going really well. Mornay Deploy is trying to challenge on Andre Hildebrand, but Andre just takes the normal racing line, which is his right to do because Mornay isn't next to him at all and can't claim ownership of the tarmac. So certainly everything to race for in these conditions. And then when they dry, of course, we're going to have a totally different race once again. And the decision when to come in, you see here that Mornay runs totally off the spray. So he'll be onto a piece of track that's probably a lot wetter than what he's seeing at the moment. And the visibility must be terrible, or really making driving conditions very difficult.
Ooh, speaking of which, he loses the rear there. You can see the sun has come out as well. So suddenly that's quite a lot brighter in the glare on the track as well.
So Andre Hildebrand, as we were singing his praises, doing so well, he runs off the track, and that's allowed Mornay Deploy to get past him. Mornay Deploy now sets off after Dinesh, but it's a long way to go.
Alright, so Yandre Dippenaar right behind Jean-Louis Detoy at the moment.
Sun is out, so we hope that the racing line will clear. Then everybody will have to come in. Ooh, there's a bit more of the track used than what's intended, and there's a bridge that's in your way if you were to stay on the grass there. So Yandre has to really think about it, but he seems to not have lost any track position sliding through that corner. That would lose him some time and give Jean-Ray a bit of breathing space as the track starts to dry, I think, now with this bright sunshine.
Donovan is going really well in these conditions. He's catching up to the guys in front of him. He's got Peter Murray just over a second in front of him, 1.1, and 1.8 in front of Peter is Sean Olivier. So he's got a potential 5th place in front of him here. He can see 5th place. Looking very comfortable, surprisingly. I didn't think that Donovan would be so comfortable in the wet.
No, certainly he's going really well.
As he runs off.
But and as we say, running off, it's just taking a wider line. He uses more than the track, but it looks like quite a few guys have done that and they've actually tarred that section, so it gives you a chance to bring the car back. If you would have gained an advantage there, then he would have been penalized, maybe just a drive through, or if it's really a big advantage, he might get a stop go. There we can see a dry line forming now, but a dry line also means that the wet weather rubber gets hot if you stick it on the dry line and don't cool it down on the moisture. And there you see, while they're on the dry line, there's absolutely no moisture, no rooster tail kicked up behind the cars, and that means the track is drying out and the rubber is wearing out. So you'll probably see them go offline every now and then where they can afford to do so, and those are one of the straights, one of the many straights that we have around the circuit. It's the Hamilton Straight is the main one. Then after Aintree is the short Wellington Straight. Then after Woodcote, there's the straight up to Cops. And then after Chapel Curve, there's the Hanger Straight as well. So a few places that you can actually go offline while on a straight and cool your tires down. Hopefully there's still some moisture to actually cool the tires down. But looking at this car of Sean Olivier, there's no rooster tail whatsoever on the line that he's running. So there comes one now. So that's probably a little bit offline into that corner. So there he slides it out. You can actually see the reflection of the car in the moisture. So he's doing all he can to keep the tires cool, but I think it's becoming more and more difficult as we find ourselves how far into this race. Because remember, it's a 30-minute race, and they are less than 20 to go. So 1/3 of this race already run with the track drying. And as I said before, if the track dries enough, and I think it will under these conditions, then it's going to be a question of putting on the dry tires and not worrying about tire life. Then you can drive all they're worth, and they're going to give back to you because the race is actually a lot shorter than what the entire first race was.
Apologies to YouTube. I'm not sure why, but YouTube is dropping frames. Everything's running fine on my side, but I can see YouTube is not getting what it needs to be needs to be got, needs to be had. Given, yes. So for some reason the stream rate is going a bit crazy, but now it seems to have settled down. And so I'm not sure why that is. Hopefully everything will settle down. Hopefully you guys haven't missed out too much on the YouTube channel.
Let's call it an undocumented feature. Certainly what is documented is the fact that Chris Collison is 0.7 of a second behind Gerrit Beekes. Now that the track is drying out, Chris Collison is getting at him. Gerrit is on the slide here and there, and Chris Collison seems to be quite smooth out of the corners. And that's the, what's the saying? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So slow entry in the corner keeps you smooth, and if you're smooth through the corner, then you're fast out of the corner. So he loses a bit of track distance there. The gap jumps to 1.1 second, but Chris Collison holding it there. And I wonder whether they're going to wait and see who blinks first to see who goes in for new rubber and then just follow him in. That's, of course, the luxury that Chris Collison has, only being 1 second behind Gerrit. Genre being 7 seconds behind Chris. He still has a time period that he can make up his mind whether he wants to go one more lap if the other two do decide to go in. But certainly the dry line now showing here, you can see the grey versus the dark grey / black, but the dry versus the moist. So maybe if the sun is strong enough, it'll actually dry the track completely, even though it's not a racing line, but there'll be no more moisture as such. But the grip will be terrible in any case. And the other thing, if you're using the curbing, that's going to be bad as well, because the paint tends to be very slippery when it's wet. But Gerrit doesn't seem to be worried by wet paint. He goes onto the curbing and off and keeps that. It's now 0.6 of a second, a little bit of a correction there coming out of that part. But Gerrit Beekes is holding on very nicely. Oh, look at this battle.
Yeah, three-way battle here.
And Donovan's amongst it. Who's ahead and behind of whom?
Peter's ahead of Donovan, who's ahead of Monet.
Okay, so Peter, Donovan, and then Monet. And they are fighting for position 6th, 7th, and 8th. The Monet deploy in 8th position, as the caption says.
So who's going to blink first and go for tires? Because I think it looks like... Is that Gelderneys that's on dry tires? I think it is. Gelderneys is on dry tires.
He had nothing to lose because he's sort of at the back of the field. He's gone in and out of the pits and comes out in dry. But these guys are battling each other, and you sort of have to make a very difficult decision and say, right, am I going to go now? From what we can see in camera with Monet, there is a dry racing line. But I would say that you don't want to venture off the dry racing line too much. So if you can be first to go in for the dry tires and get an advantage, then the other guys, having stayed out on warm, wet weather tires, there you go.
It is in.
So Peter Marais is the first to go and the others stay out. So this is going to be interesting to see where Peter comes out and then how fast he catches the other cars ahead of him.
Oh, he's at the pit wall. Came in too fast there.
Also, there's been a change in the front. Chris Collison leads. What has happened to Gerrit? Gerrit is on dry, so he's pitted.
Yeah, he's in the pits.
He's in the pits, drops down to 5th, drops down to 6th. So all change now. It's going to be Gerrit Dinash, Peter Marais, and Jandré Dippenaar on the dries, and Peter Gelderneys as well. But the dry tires, once he gets out, is Gerrit Beekes in 6th position. So let's see how quickly he's going to make up those positions. So Chris Collison's still on the wet with the tire, and how much grip he's got in that tire, let's keep an eye on the last lap. He's a 217, and once the guy's on the dry weather tires, Gerrit Beekes already up into 6th position. Gerrit was previously a best of 217.365, which was also the purple for the race, and I expect that to fall down quite a bit once he gets those tires up to temperature. I think that Chris would have tried now to give it everything and then come in for the dries, even though he's probably a lap late. But who knows, maybe his timing is excellent and he's done it just right.
Yeah, we'll watch the lap times now. So Gerrit is the leading driver on the dry tires. Let's see how much time he gains or loses. He's currently 30 seconds shy of Chris, who's still on the wet tires.
Yeah, so quite a bit to catch up. But certainly in the dry, if you can stick to the dry line and not make any mistakes, there's that battle that's still going on. And that's Mornay de Ploy. And Mornay is also one of the last remaining cars on wets. And he's fighting, is that Donovan for Mark. And here comes Gerrit. And Gerrit wants to pass all of them. And he's on dry tires. So, of course, if he's on the racing... that's exactly what I said. Was that a touch? If you're off the racing line and then you're on dry rubber, then the grip is not good. Whereas the wets would probably be a little bit forgiving. Now the rules will probably get him. Is that Mornay coming in for wets? So the rules will probably say that he should have waited for him to pass, but he can't wait for him to pass because he's into the pits. So hopefully he doesn't hit the pit wall. Is that Jean-Ray's lean green machine in for dry weather tires? So Chris Collison, has he been in and out? Or here he goes out now. And does he maintain the lead? Because Mornay deploys...
There comes Gerrit.
Yep. So it looks as though, but Gerrit's at speed. Mornay still has to get temperature into those tires. But he's got brand new. So will there be a love tap? I don't think so. He'll hold just back and rely on the fact that his tires are already... and he locks up the brakes. As I said again, as soon as you go off the racing line, then that's what happens. But then Chris Collison just runs the blocking line. It's actually not a blocking line. He runs the racing line proper. And that just happens to be a bit difficult for Gerrit to get past him because any line off the racing line will be slightly damp. And you're going to lock up if you've got to slow down for a corner.
So that incident that happened between Gerrit and Donovan, we have that replay here.
Yeah, and then was it Mornay avoiding action round the outside of them?
Yeah, just unfortunate. I think also going offline to try and make the pass, he got onto the damp track with his slicks, and that also made it maybe not stop quite as quick. So it was just a racing incident.
And in the meantime, Gerrit has got past Chris Collison.
Right, will Chris be able to challenge? Chris, of course, he's got to warm his tires up, warm his brakes up, adapt to the changing grip levels. I think Gerrit, with the extra lap, has had a bit of time to adjust himself. It seems like we're having a little bit of problem today with YouTube. For some reason, YouTube is just struggling to receive data. So apologies to everyone for that.
Certainly what you are putting out, for those that don't know, I piggyback on the visuals that Dennis does. So my visuals are as good as what Dennis gives out, but it goes all the way across the interweb. And that certainly is very good. So sometimes YouTube just has a challenge. There's been a lot of activity sport-wise over the weekend, so maybe there are a lot of people on YouTube. Who knows? But certainly somebody that is flying along is Gerrit Pierkes, and he has a gap of just over 1.3 seconds on Chris Collison. That's first and second.
Well, I have dropped the settings on YouTube, so let's see if that will hopefully smooth itself out.
And when Dennis says he's dropped the settings, he's probably going to be feeding it at a slightly slower bit rate. Or something like that.
Yes, I've dropped the bitrate from 12,000 to 6,000 just to see if that'll make a difference, because it's fluctuating, which is what causes the issue in the YouTube. But it's fine on my end. It seems like YouTube just doesn't want to receive it.
Talking about fluctuations, Jean-Ray de Toy is 2.2 seconds behind Chris Collison. So if we look at the last laps, well, it was the tyre change for Chris. So Jean-Ray must have done the tyre change earlier than Chris did. So he certainly has had the advantage of doing the tyre change one lap earlier, and he is now a lot closer to Chris Collison than what he was compared to when everybody was still on wets. That being said, Andre Hildebrandt is still out there on wet weather tyres in 7th place.
Yeah, hanging in there. Maybe taking the gamble might pay off.
who knows? I know in the days of Formula One, the guys could race the wets until they actually they had no tread left, and then the grip was almost as good as a semi-slick. And then I think they brought in some other rule that said you had to at least have X millimeters of tread remaining, otherwise it was regarded as dangerous. But Andre Hildebrandt's still going around on wet weather tires, and he still doesn't come into the pits. In fact, these aren't the pits that they use, these are the other ones down the back straight. And talking about the back straight, just get the name right, it's the hanger straight. So this will be then Stowe, and that's the exit out of the pits that we're talking about there. So Peter Veldmech is looking for a position to pass. So this is that classic section of the circuit, Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, and then it should be, if it goes straight, there's a pit exit again. As I say, this track is confusing with the multiple straights that they can and do use for racing. But this looks like the hanger straight. This is a sharp right-hander, which it is. It's a fast right-hander. It's Stowe corner. And then it'll go, you'll see another pit exit, and that's the one that we're using today. That'll pop up, hopefully. This is club corner first. They probably passed the pit exit already. Yes, there it was. So this is club, and this just continues round, and more around to the right, and then they'll be into the straight that is in use for today. The start finishing line, as you see, is right after the exit of the corner. It's very close to the exit of club. So Andre Hildebrand certainly is making life interesting, to say the least, because he's still out there on the wets. And what's his times look like? 2:21s, which is 10 seconds a lap slower than the car ahead of him. And Donovan is indicated as being on an outlap, and we have 7.5 minutes to go. So I don't think Andre is going to worry. He's leading the veterans, and he's quite a long distance ahead of, he's about 12 seconds ahead of Marius van Wyk. And if you look at the last lap times at 2:14, well, Marius can catch him. So they've got Donovan Vermaak in between. But certainly it looks as though Andre Hildebrand is going to see if he can complete this second half of the race on a set of wets. Well, the whole race on a set of wets, including the dry portion.
Donovan gets past him quite easily there.
Yes, I expected that. And Marius van Wyk is now only 10 seconds behind. And the last lap from Marius was a 2:15 compared to the 2:21. So that's 6 seconds per lap. So within 2 laps, he should be at him and past him. And we have 6.5 minutes to go. So Chris is a bit ragged there. He cuts that corner onto the grass off all of the paint. So he's only 1.6 seconds behind Gerrit Beerkes. So I think he might consider giving it everything that the tires have got left. The track has dried out nicely, so maybe worth taking a chance to get a win for the second race.
Oh, DNF for Peter Geldenhuys. I'm not too sure exactly what just happened.
Yeah, that's not very nice ever to see anybody drop off. So that's 3 DNFs. It's Julian Brains, Peter Murray, and then Peter Geldenhuys as well.
We have Peter Geldenhuys commenting on YouTube saying he got disconnected, so unfortunately that was his issue. So sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's common, but if you see it, I've learned over the time that I've been commentating with Dennis, when you see a guy running sort of mid-pack and then have a DNF, then it's normally that the system is disconnected, and whether it's ISCOM related or on his own system related, we never know, but that's just the way that it is, and the system deals with it in that fashion. That means we have, let's see how many guys are actually still running in this race, 13 of them, and Gawie Gous is 12th. So Arjan Belder is a long way back. He probably had a spin again. And Gawie Gous is a long way behind Andre Hildebrand. So Andre made those wet weather tires count, because Andre and Gawie are racing against each other. But Marius van Wyk, that's up in 9th position, is the leader of the veterans. So Marius van Wyk in 9th, Andre Hildebrand in 11th, and Gawie Gous in 12th position, those are cars number 77, 72, and Harvey Goos unlucky 13. Those are the first, second, and third in the veterans category.
Right, so Dinesh Singh currently in 6th place. So that's a fantastic result for Dinesh. This is the beauty of these mixed weather conditions. It mixes up the grid a little bit, and Dinesh, hasn't been able to do all the races. So this will give him a lot of points that will boost him up the championship standings.
And he had a terrible race one. Somebody running into the back of his car, taking out the wing. He actually got it going and went into the pits, repaired the wing. He didn't score any points, but he was out there when the race finished. And certainly, talking about didn't finish, Chris Collison using the curving a little bit violently, but he's giving it all he can. He's less than a second behind Gerrit Beekes. And what is the time left in this race? It's 1 minute 55.
It's over, according to that.
Or is it a minus 155?
Yeah, they've just crossed the line, so I think they've just finished. So that's Garrett taking the win from Chris Collison. Jean-Louis Dutoit in 3rd.
Yeah,
Jean-Louis Dupinard 4th.
I missed the minus sign, so they'd actually crossed the line just in time to start another lap and finish that lap, as we've run just over 2 minutes into extra time, as it were.
Oh, apologies, I'm so busy looking at all the YouTube stuff, trying to still figure out the connection issues, and realized that the race was now over. So some of the drivers still coming across the line. Dinesh Singh will come across the line in a moment. Fantastic 6th place for Dinesh.
He's going to be very happy with that. And then the system just loses itself and gives everybody wet weather tires again. So, but yeah, after bad luck first race, a great position, great finish for Dinesh Singh in 6th, Donovan Vermaak in 7th, Rian van Westhuizen in 8th position, Morne Deploy, Marius van Wyk, Andre Hildebrand finishing on the wets, just ahead of Harvey Goos, who finished in 12th position.
Right, Rian coming across the line in a moment with Morne Deploy right behind him.
Still sliding. I did say that these dry tires will have less race distance to cover, but they are aware of that and they're making them work real hard. So the flag is out, as we said, in the positions. I don't think there were any changes on the last lap. So those are positions they finished in.
I believe Andre Hildebrand is the last driver on the lead lap. In fact, Harvey's showing that he's still on the lead lap.
Yeah, albeit he's got a lap of 77, or no, he's got a gap of 77 seconds. So, but he probably crossed the line just in time to actually still be on the lap, although we see a flag behind him. So there goes Harvey, maybe just another lap.
I believe that's it then.
Yeah.
Alright, well, we're going to jump to an ad break now, and hopefully everything will be okay for the interviews. We'll be back shortly.
Well then, speak to you now.
Right, welcome back everyone to the Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 4 completion. Coming to you live from the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in the United Kingdom. We of course are joined by our top 3 drivers, which are, for this round, Chris Collison taking overall victory from Gerrit Piekers, and in third place Jean-Louis de Toy. Chris, an awesome return to form, recovering from your surgery. You must have had some hassles that you had to deal with, but an excellent first race. And the second race, it looked like you might even challenge towards the end, but just ran out of time. How was it coming back to form and getting victory again?
Oh, it's fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really good to be duking it out with Gerrit pretty much for the entire time. Qualified really well. I was chuffed to bits with that. And the race, honestly, I must admit, and Gerrit was absolutely reeling me. And I think he had a little moment with about a lap and a half to go, and let's just say that I did kind of punch the air a little bit. Sorry, Gerrit, but it did happen. But yeah, so I could coast home in that one. The second race, equally as much fun. I think we came together on the warm-up lap, and I think actually we both suffered a tiny bit of aero damage, but I think it was even Stevens afterwards. And yeah, that one was tight as well, and the boot was on the other foot this time, where I was trying to chase Gerrit down. But yeah, deserved win in that second race for him, and yeah, good fun for me.
Well done, Chris. And Gerrit, a fantastic race, not getting race victory for one of the races, finally in the championship, having a good competition there. Fought back nicely in race 2. How did you find the changeable weather conditions? You seem to have a lot more grip than the others. You took different lines to them, so were you a bit more prepared for the wet? You seem to just have that slight edge in the wet.
Yeah, the wet was fine for me. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't a lot of grip out there, but yeah, I have a gap on Chris. And yeah, and then basically I think I nailed the pit stop at the right time, and yeah, I had a little pace there, and then we had a coming together there, Donovan, myself, there in Stowe. Yeah, and it worked out fine for me.
All right, well done. And then third place, Jean-Louis,